Hello, everybody. March 16th meeting. Let's just go around the room who's here and who's missing. So let's just back up for a sec. Are you taking notes or who's taking notes?
We're both taking notes.
Oh, who's
Did you
both?
want to? Well, Faith is recording.
Okay. Just process question.
So we've Mars just created a Google Doc. Sort of job.
Right, these
Action.
tests were gonna move to the city so that they were off the committee, but I don't think we're there yet, right?
Oh, we can be there today if you would like.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, that's the main reason we record and then we just go back and make minutes off the record.
Oh,
You just
perfect.
timestamp a few
Yep.
key decisions and there's no decisions today. Okay.
Exactly.
Awesome.
If that's the trend, if we're moving in that direction, I don't see any reason to wait.
It doesn't accord with the bylaws, but we can change bylaws.
I think we'll have that discussion later. I don't want to. One point, actually, Faith and I know this isn't on the agenda, but since we had a quick minute conversation, maybe we'll postpone to the bylaws, but if we could maybe have access to that Google Doc, if we don't already, because we noticed that there were some minutes that were missing from the website, if I'm not mistaken, when we looked like a week or two ago. Was that? I believe that was tree board. that we were
Which
missing.
meeting?
I don't.
We can
I
get you.
grabbed those from her.
Oh, you did?
It
Okay.
was from Hudson Trail.
Perfect. Misunderstanding. Apologize. For being
Kind of. Trying to keep track of the minutes. Okay. Laurel Desmond, present. Elizabeth Brackman, present. Maureen Whitehouse, present.
Tom Chance, present.
Heidi Johnson, present. Sarah Boyle, present.
Myra Emberly, present.
And so Melissa is missing. She's not voted. Dan Baker said he couldn't make it. And everybody. And Grant. And thank you for getting this up today. Approval of the minutes, February 16th. Does anybody need a copy or has everyone had a chance to review? If so, we'll take a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
I'll second it.
All those in favor of approval of the minutes from February 16th?
Aye.
Any opposed? And thank you for doing those. Those are all work. Old business, Arbor Day celebration, Arbor Day, fourth Thursday in April every year. We are allowed to move that date to any day we want, as long as we do something for our Tree City designation. We had talked about some various things. I think Grant, apparently we do have the funding for this year. It was increased up to $850 for all Tree Cities that have a tree board. So we had a few different ideas. We had talked about doing an educational. Apparently that's not quite the direction we want to be going. And the Shane was booked. So another option that Sarah and I talked about briefly was doing, since it's now officially Montana Native Plant Month. Thank you, Heidi. Doing a small planting somewhere of bird-friendly, fruit-bearing native plants, little garden somewhere at one of the schools or over at the sister city, something like that. Pretty different than planting a tree, kind of a different approach, encouraging people to get more thinking about shrubs and native plants and other things. I think we're wide open to any other ideas. That's the only one I could think of. And what other ideas that people have?
Just a question on the Arbor Day website, Arbor Day Foundation website, it says that the $850 is specifically meant to pay for planting trees. That's what it says on the website.
I believe that. I have not checked.
I mean, it's no issue.
Well, so just coming from the tree board retreats, it did come up and I asked several people, is the understory also considered part of urban forestry? And they said absolutely. So I'm not gonna worry about that. They do talk trees, and honestly, I think it's a mistake. And I think they're looking at the canopy, they're looking at a lot of things, like basically green space, so good point, I mean, I'm not objecting to a tree, I just thought that with the PCEC and all this, I thought there was enough tree action going on that we maybe want to move in a different direction this time, that's all. Totally open to suggestions or,
Well, I am going to go talk to Mitch. I haven't told him or talked directly about the fact that we did get the proclamation has been approved. I'm waiting for it's being edited and going to be finalized at the end of the month. I've been promised before April 1st. And so with what Mitch is planning for landscaping around the library, part of that is, I know one tree was going to be replaced, maybe more, but then, the native planting around the library. So I'm kind of focused on talking to him about that now that we've been given the green light, or, really have something to talk about. And as soon as I have the proclamation in hand, then the group that I'm a part of, the other, the Garden Club of America, I get a publicity packet that kind of comes, I can't get my hand on it until the proclamation, until I've got that, and they send the proclamation to the national group. And I think there's some good stuff in there as far as educating, ideas to be able to educate communities, etc.
mhm,
So I haven't seen what that is, but so for here locally, and what I know is kind of going to be in the works is the library, and also the garden, a couple of areas at the garden at St. Andrews to revitalize and put a couple of
what
native.
is saying?
So what?
That's
pardon me?
Old George at Third and the wetlands.
So the garden, they're going to be doing some replanting there and bringing in native gardens, so it. And weren't they talking in the park? Was there one area or specific site there that was kind of identified for planting?
No idea.
So,
Facilities.
I'm about to start my
Mhm.
search as far as
Do you
what's,
know what that is, Grant? Aren't they? What the city's planning?
I'm trying to think off the top of my head now, and I'm,
there's one little area and I can't remember, blanking,
Haven't heard.
but I agree with you. I think, or as far as just trees, I mean, I think that, the relationship between native plants, the trees, the wildflower, just the ecosystem, it's all really one when it kind of comes down to it.
Well, and realistically, there are gonna be places around the town that big trees just are probably never gonna work. And so.
Yeah,
we
no,
should
you're
start,
right.
Showing examples.
So I think
of
shrubs and
other
being able to
options and-
bring the pollinators, I mean, things that the birds and things that are at risk or, shrinking. I think that's kind of a part of,
So what you're saying is the library do they have a landscape plan or they're just going to?
I think Mitch has it in his head.
Yeah, I
And,
can't imagine
but we,
them.
before the snow fell, we pulled up sod on the right side of the building there. And, I think last time I spoke to him, he was focused on having it kind of done already, come April, May. I mean, no way, April from what I'm looking at right now over there. But there is a group that, been kind of working or helping at least clean up some of it and talking about a plan. It's,
Yeah,
it's
who
not,
knows?
it's not written unless he's done that. And that was one of the things I was gonna ask him. Unless he's been working
Well,
on that.
that seems like a good option for a location. I don't know. Do you know who the group is?
A few master gardeners that, and so there were about 4 or 5 ladies that
Mhm.
I was working with that,
Mm.
as far as the cleanup part before.
I mean, April, the limitations are that the greenhouses aren't full of plants sometimes yet. They haven't come. Also, we don't know about the weather. I mean, it's probably not
Yeah,
frozen
that's
ground, but
kind of it.
okay.
I
to
mean,
plant.
maybe not a planting month. for
It's not bad because then you can get them in. I mean, as long as the ground isn't frozen, you can
Frozen.
get them in before they start to root out. And then they have a better chance of success in that case. I like the idea of planting a tree at the library. I think that's
I mean, it's kind of a community.
absolutely, I mean, that is a community site or the museum, you know, we talked about how
Yeah.
a tree, there's a tree that was passed at the museum,
Okay.
you know,
Yellowstone.
Yellowstone Gateway.
Both those maple trees are gone.
Yeah,
They're gonna come back this year, but they're just not gonna thrive. I contacted Karen Reinhardt last year and then she turned me over, I don't know the guy's name, the museum director.
Mhm.
And eventually, a month later, I saw somebody watering them, but
did they leaf out at all last year?
yes,
Okay,
about 20, 30, 40% leaked out. It's, but they're both on the way out.
This tree meeting
Are
had
they
no
older?
good things to say about maple
No,
trees.
they're maybe
Even in
15
Missoula.
years. Because when we were planting last year across the street, kind of a kitty corner across the street, for Livingston Loves Trees, Tyler Averman said, yeah, I planted those X number of years ago.
And why are they not planting?
I don't know. I can't remember what it was. One of my oak trees was not looking good, and so I checked and somebody said maples and oaks have a hard time with one, I don't know if it's iron or potassium or something. Anyway, I got a bag of it and boom, within a, but the maples turn almost bright yellow. The leaves are just so starved for whatever nutrient that was. I thought I had a picture of it, but I don't. Anyway, they're gone. So that's an option.
So $850 is a lot of money. So, I mean, we could focus on one that's kind of, you know, like a triangle planting, low, medium, and tall. We could go, to, you know, some proposals. I'm sure Mark would be more than happy to have a tree planted at his museum, even though he's desperate to move out of there, but it'll be years, so. We could do a similar native planting, it's possible we could do both, but, you know, on different days or something.
but to have a native planting in the Yellowstone Museum, where it's the Museum of
Exactly.
Montana, and then to have some native plants
Mhm.
planted there as
think
part
it'd
of
be
sort of
great.
like, kind of incorporated into the,
Mhm.
but
Stories. good.
yeah, I don't want to get too far off the track of.
No, but I mean, I think that, you know, having a ground cover and, you know, I'm gonna even buy bitterroot planting.
Bitterroots don't thrive here as much as they do on the
No,
western
I've
side of the
seen like
state.
one last
I
year.
had one in I
First
had
time
one for
ever.
a couple years and it,
They don't like it here.
no, they like
Yeah.
it to be super rocky and dry.
I saw it up by Hogback. I was so shocked, yeah.
But certainly there are native perennials and shrubs and then a small tree. I think it's a great idea to do.
Yeah,
a
I think
cluster.
we could make
That
it
a lot, as long as it includes the tree, I think. You know,
I don't know. I have no objection to a tree. Is that, so logistically, what's the, you know, location, date, workers, plants, budget? How do we want to approach this as the team, or is this something that should go to Public Works?
Well, in all honesty, the city doesn't control that piece of property. If we, either of those pieces of property, right?
Right.
So if that is the decision of the board, then, you know, I'd be happy to reach out on behalf of the board to, you know, whatever location is selected and work with the director of that facility to get a tree in there. So, and whether that would be city public works or county public works would be, you know,
Okay.
something. to work
Yeah,
out.
I could ask Matt too. Yeah, I think, I just wanted to know, like last year, I think the city actually planted, they dug the holes. Did they actually do the planting and then the kids just did the top dressing? or-
No, so last year Farmer Megan did the planting and she had the kids help her
She
with
had
it. She did all that herself. Yeah, she had some trees taken, there was some trees taken out at Washington. Yeah. So, but she got bare roots, so she got quite a few trees for the, and she had the soil amendments and everything else that went with it. So,
You didn't mention a design in there, if it's gonna be a cluster, it'd be nice to have a,
Mhm.
Sarah, are you-
not a designer. I can put something together, but it's not my forte. If the library has a design, maybe that is something to try and go with, if they're working on a design element of it.
Okay, I think that, I thought that he was. And I've looked at just a couple of websites that say they, instant design or native plant garden, and I thought,
Mhm.
so I haven't looked into that, but I mean, yeah, I think there are some. Simple plans, but we have, I mean, as we've stood in front of the library and kind of talked about, what's going in, I mean, there's some pulling away the trees that are impacting the foundation of the building, so. There's some kind of what am I trying to say, the major elements over there, what's getting replaced, and then talking about the filler plants and boulders. We have one lady that lives in the valley.
Deal. Okay,
Yeah,
so I think they're ways away from planting, it sounds like, so. Maybe
unless he's
the-
been working hard at it, but I was gonna try and connect up with him today and just kind of let him know what I've, kind of where I am and, see where he is.
So do we want to try to pull this off in April, or it sounds like we've got some issues here?
Well, just to throw out another idea, kind of along the line of the pollinators, and I know last year we did some fruit trees, but is the community garden interested in maybe having some fruit trees planted there?
The one at Lincoln School,
Mhm.
I don't know, because they don't own that ground.
Who owns it?
It's a I don't know
It's a
who owns Lincoln
co-op or
School anymore,
something.
it's some bunch of people, yeah.
Okay.
And I also don't know who maintains the community garden beyond each individual, so.
Right, because I know they Farm to School planted some fruit trees in their half of
Yeah.
that garden.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's about.
So Earth Day is the
22nd.
22nd, and that's a Saturday.
Sarah pointed out a lot of people are going for sports that day because it's still the school year. Yes, Earth Day.
I think it would be good to do something in April. I mean, just now knowing that, we are gonna have it designated as Native Plant Month. I mean, there's just gonna be a lot of, I think, energy around that, for the publicity, the advertising, the stuff that's gonna be going out. Working with the Earth Day group in Bozeman and the president of the Native Plant Society. So I think, I mean, the energy is gonna be there to, kind of support doing
Is that
something.
this fellow from Townsend, see the president?
Pardon me,
From Townsend, the fellow from Townsend is your president, Native Plants?
is Montana Native Plant Society, what, Patrick? Mhm.
I told him we were going along these lines. He thought it was great. Yeah. Okay, so somebody make a proposal. We're all over the place here. It sounds to me like the museum might be easier because it's not got so many other millions of things going on. That is county, but I don't think that's an issue. We can check with Public Works and the director. I guess design would be the next step, and then who are people envisioning actually doing this work? Is the tree board involved? Do we ask for volunteers? Do we ask for the county to just take care of it? And we put up little signs that say, this is a native currant and this is a native dogwood and this is a chokecherry, and because you can buy little signs that I think that came out too, starting to label things is really helpful for the community to see what, oh, I love that tree, and then they see what it is.
There's signs you can put in the ground.
Yeah, and that's a part of what Mitch is talking about. It's going to be educational,
Right.
so with little signs, so and stories.
Mhm.
So I think that's important to have identifying them, and kind of talk about the value of whether it's a plant or a tree. shrub.
How did the kids get involved last year? Because that sounds like a really good idea, both educational and awareness.
Yeah.
Wise.
So last year I got in touch with Farm to School and linked up with them, and we did it over at Washington School, because I had a kindergartner last year. So we, she had each of the different kindergarten classes help plant a different tree, and they had fun, like getting their little gloves on.
Yeah,
So
do they
the
need
holes were
more
dead.
or are they all set?
Washington's pretty
Well,
set, I would
okay.
say, yeah.
Well, we could do something similar, somehow get children involved, because.
Are there volunteer hours that the kids need?
The big kids do, but
Yeah, I'm thinking with the high school, if there's anything that they, need, to bring them in, and then you bring them in and you get their parents.
yeah,
But it might be
there's FFA and there's, the 4-H isn't really that active at the Livingston schools, but there are 4-H groups, minimal. FFA is at the high school. Future
Yeah, I'm
farmers.
not hearing too well.
The FFA at the high school might be, it's hard for them to leave class if we do a school day.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I mean, the little kids just walked out of their rooms. There's no, we go for the museum, Washington is still the closest school. They could just walk down
Or you could get the Links program involved too.
after school.
Do it like at 3:30 or 4 or something,
awesome.
because they're pretty amicable usually to
Yeah.
doing little field trips and stuff.
Yeah, there's just a few blocks. And they're gonna probably close the Washington school next year anyway, so. Or use it for certain things, but not school day. Well, let's back up. So can we agree? So we're agreed on April. We're agreed, well, how do people feel about the museum if they're agreeable? And then how about a backup? What's plan B if the museum says no? Library? Or is there another idea out there?
I think, I don't know who owns the property, but I do believe a couple of the trees along the railroad tracks behind the depot center are dead. And those are just trees, just in the center of the
Yeah.
squares, it's missing, But I'm pretty sure, because I ride back there, I'm pretty sure that either they're dead or getting really close to dying.
At the depot?
Yeah.
That's where they have weddings back there. Yeah. Any other ideas for locations? And there's a million of them, but
There was that, I think it's ML, well, I don't know, it's Rail Link or Burlington Northern property, but there was that kind of sort of pyramid shaped,
the triangle out there.
yeah.
Mhm.
Just kind of, they moved that obelisk or whatever,
Yeah.
that used to be over at 9th Street, now it's over there.
Yeah, that's a state highway. You can't have anything over 4 inches. There's height restrictions. Because it's on Park Street. Is that what you're talking about?
Mhm.
Lot, it's a good idea and it's really a hassle at the moment. We'll get into that with the gateways, but there's a lot of rules by DOT on that road. So,
Yeah,
I
Well,
just went
somewhere there.
stripes.
yeah, but just a little bit farther down, apparently restrictions end, either that or those were planted before there were restrictions.
There's a
all
lot
the
of things that
trees.
don't meet their requirements at this point, and they're saying no to new, but I think they're gonna, I don't know that it's a priority for them, but. Yeah. I ran across all my notes from them the other day. Jeez. Okay, April, museum, small native plant garden with the tree.
Another alternative could be, we could touch base with the public schools to see if they have a spot, if
Mhm.
they need them other than Washington.
Yeah.
Because that would be easy to get the kids also.
Sleeping giant, it's possible. No. Doesn't mean trees at one. Well, they have that garden, but it's always dead. It is, they've planted it so many times and it's always dead. It's because the schools are vacant in the summer when all of it, I mean, it's just out of sync around here.
Mhm.
I understand it, but
Well,
I
mine
was
is-
wondering if we could plant with either the sunken, the old way of the native with the low ridge, so you're basically planting in a well, or actually use the cisterns that are not popular up here, but I think that's changing. I think we might be having to move in that direction over time, and that we could do a little, I kind of wanted to try it, but so native planting techniques as well. It's a different version of the word native, but it is very much the native tradition. Or just, in this climate, trying to get stuff to grow when you don't have underground irrigation. I don't know if the museum does have irrigation on that. I don't think so. I think I've seen sprinklers above the grass. I'm not sure. It looks nice.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can,
I think they sprinkle their lawn, but that doesn't do trees.
So, okay. So design. We could approach Jody, we could approach Sandy Blake, or one of her people, they'd probably be happy to do it.
I think both those people, yeah, Jody she helped me with my plan. She's in town, right?
She's my
Native isn't so
Oh,
much
she's
her
your neighbor?
specialty, but I don't
Known
think
her a long
that's a
time.
big deal.
Linda, I don't think.
Yeah, and that was always, yeah. You can call Linda. She's almost always completely hair on fire. That's just
Who's,
Linda.
which one?
Linda Iverson.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know how much she's actually working anymore.
She actually is, but almost exclusively in Bozeman and commercial, I
Yeah.
think.
Big
And
projects.
huge.
And who owns, the lady that owns Rose, the Rose
Chris?
Market? Rosewood Market.
Chris,
Mm.
yeah.
She
She doesn't do design.
She doesn't do design.
No.
Heather Muldoon?
Oh,
Heather has done some designing. Mhm.
that's a good
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah,
Are they there? They survived the flood?
they
Oh,
barely
so-
survived it. Yeah, I know
Yeah.
that. I talked to them towards the end of things and they had managed to gather up everything.
Yeah.
Completely swept it
I
away.
think they lost some things, but they did okay.
Yeah.
That's a nice idea. I think my bot survived.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. No, she's great.
And
we could
Heather's
ask
good with the
them.
native plants too.
She's
Yeah.
native. French.
Well, she is very familiar with them and
What's, does she have trees?
no,
don't think
she's
so.
doing
She just-
flowers
Yeah,
now.
bedding plants.
Mhm. But Chris could get us any trees or native plants. Like if we could talk to her right away.
Chris.
Woods
Rose,
Rose,
yeah,
Chris
Rose.
could get it for us, yeah.
What's Heather's business name? I can't remember.
Heather's Garden Service,
Heather's Garden
because
Service.
she does a lot of maintenance.
Yeah. I suppose we have $850 and we could give her $10 and need a budget.
And trees cost. The bigger they are, the more they cost. And I think that the Livingston Lovers Tree people. Have a real commitment to getting the trees as big as possible for the better chance of survival. So that's like about $200.
Yeah, about 250 for what I've been, some of those, reasonable size for.
Yeah, the 15 gallons are about,
Mhm.
150, 180.
Mm.
And that's a pretty good size, and they're about 10, 11, 12 feet tall, depending on the type of tree.
Well, we're gonna plant in the yard. in the community, so.
So aside from, evergreen trees, what are native Montana trees? What are-
Bur oaks are actually a native tree. I think the hackberry is a native tree. I'm not able to pull the whole list off the top of my head. People make choke cherries into trees, but they're not typically a tree.
Mhm.
There's a lot of pines that are native to Montana.
Lots of pines.
Yeah.
And then
And their solar system
Cottonwoods are a
faces,
big one.
because we want to be sure we're not shading.
And I think grows under pine trees, so a cluster wouldn't.
Oh, I
they
wouldn't
just
plant a pine
acidify
tree.
the soil.
And we just don't have a lot of native.
No, we
deciduous
don't.
trees.
This is the issue.
Poplars are among quite a few of them, but poplars are not a good choice for for the front yard of the.
No.
Yeah.
No, and there's some willows and everything that's native is grows along the waters and it's not a good spot anyway. So we may just end up with, some dogwoods that get 10 feet or something like that. And that's considered.
Hackberries do okay here. I mean, they're not the most beautiful, stunning tree to look at. And bur oaks, if you give them time, they'll turn out
Lot
to
of
be a really
time.
amazing
A lot
tree.
of time.
So I've had one in for about 12 years, 12 to 15 years, and it's really doing well.
A bur
A
oak?
bur oak, yeah, it looks beautiful now. So, and it just did its thing for a while.
Mhm.
So
Hackberries grow a lot faster.
hackberry
Yeah.
grows a lot
A lot
faster, yeah.
faster than bur oak.
Yeah.
Okay. Does somebody, would somebody like to call her or I can, or I don't know her actually, but
Heather, I can call her an hour.
ask her if she wants to do a little
Sure.
design for us and
Yeah.
the budget. I will call Mark and ask if he's interested and then we'll have to go through the proper, he's the director. If that's okay, Grant, do you want to be in on it or not necessarily?
Mark probably better than I
Yeah.
do.
And I'm guessing that I'll stick Karen on it, so that's great. And a weekday with the kids in school, so technically the Arbor Day, I believe, is that Friday. And then it coincides with Native Plant Month in Montana. Okay, so now we need a motion with all those details. Chair shouldn't, but I can.
All right, well, I'll make a motion to celebrate Arbor Day or recognize Arbor Day on, is it April 28th? Friday, April 28th, 27th. I'm sorry, I don't remember.
This isn't gonna tell me.
Double check.
Sure, no,
Don't use that.
I do too much.
Twenty-eighth or the 21st? Okay, so for celebration of Arbor Day on Friday, April 28th, with a tree and plant installation at the Yellowstone Gateway Museum. Details to be ironed out,
Budget 850, not to exceed.
not to exceed $850.
Second.
All those in favor?
I,
Great. The next agenda item was review of bylaws. Grant is here. We have the existing, which as you pointed out, Elizabeth, these were only approved in spring of 2022, which just a year ago. March of 2022, first day of the month of completion. A lot of things are changing at the city level, review, new administration, kind of a new time. All of the different boards and the role of the boards are actually being reviewed, if I'm not mistaken. Because things, as we all know, there have been some challenging times in the last couple of years. And so as much as reviewing the existing, I guess I would really like to hear, and I think Grant as well, what if people, so any advisory board or citizen board, it's citizen democracy, that's the goal. We want to make a more livable community. Tree board in particular is focused on leaving a legacy. for the community for decades to come. We want the idea of trees or green space integrated into all aspects of the community. I mean, they lower crime, they slow traffic, they improve safety, they make the city more walkable, they bring people together socially outdoors, they increase property values. There's actually a calculator now under, it's not Tree City, I have to find it, but you can, our inventory, for instance, over the last 10 years has been entered in, and you can click on the button and it will tell you how much CO2 has been reduced, how much traffic, how much crime, how much this, how much that, how much property values, and they're of course generalities, but it's a benefit across all aspects of community life. What is the best way for a tree board to really participate in this in a community? Strictly advisory, is there any regulatory, is there, I think, I'm glad it's coming up for discussion because I think it could be much more focused and much more effective than we've been in the past, even though things have happened. And so many different groups. If you look at our annual report, there were partners, there was the city, there was us, there were Farm to School, there's many players. And so what is the best role for this group? And I guess I would just like to open it up for ideas. This isn't decision-making. This is just strictly, what do we feel, what's worked, what hasn't worked, where do we see, where would we like to see it go? And then just as a heads up, we're probably on pause for the next 2 months while Grant and commissioners and different people work on this and come up with a more viable way to run these boards. That captured?
It is, I would say the pause for the next few months, certainly if there's an item to be discussed, it's not an absolute pause, but I'm interested to hear from you folks, I guess. What you like about the board, what you don't like about the board. If you could do things differently, what would you do differently? If you could do more of something, less of something in that regard. I recognize that everyone here is busy with a lot of other things to do, whether it's jobs or families. And so I do want to make sure that we're making effective and productive use of everyone's time and that everyone, is excited to come to the tree board meeting and excited about the mission of tree board and doesn't view it as, all right, well, it's every tree board meeting here. So, and I don't know that anyone feels that way currently. I just want to take an opportunity while I'm new here to kind of understand where you folks are and where you would like to be. So with that, Laura, I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah, I mean, so we're not doing what the bylaw says. So I think it's a blank slate. I guess how do people feel about it? I mean, is it rewarding the way it is? Are there things, let's start with what's worked. What's working?
We're doing Arbor Day.
We're doing it. And we have a clean flag.
Don't put me in charge of it again.
We'll try to keep it out of the mud this time.
Yeah.
If there's a theme in this Article 2 purpose, it looks like the tree board was conceived as to be kind of a liaison between the public and the commission. Or the public and the city. And then that role wasn't really possible for a while. I think that rethinking anything, I think that's still a very good role for the tree board. And to get more specific about that and codify that, I think would be a good goal.
It's nice because what has come up in a couple of meetings over time recently and also very much at this tree board retreat was, and this is happening not just here, but it's an equity problem. And, where trees are most needed or the benefits of green space commonly are the areas that are last to get it. We have trailer parks, we have lower income neighborhoods, we have new developments, we have some very crunchy developments out, that are already been done. I don't even know if that was in the city at that time. It's just this side of Green Acres, but, that's not where the focus is right now. And that would be something that, there was a lot of emphasis on a master plan, which I think would be definitely the role of the city. Whether the tree board simply, advises or gives our contribution to a master plan, we're not gonna write it. And then a management plan. So what do we want and how are we gonna get there? And I think that that would be a great place for a lot of public groups. We can't hold them to it, but hopefully there would be engagement. And that people would work under a master plan, to the benefit of the community. I think that is an excellent point.
So maybe community involvement in, sort of, we could be involved somehow in stakeholder surveys in the neighborhoods you were talking about. Do outreach to folks to see what the needs are and then submit, we could help, funnel that information to the other boards, to the commission, to the city.
Yeah. So, that then raises the question, is it an advisory board? Is it a working board? Is it a decision-making board? And all of those things are, options, whether the city that fits under what the commission, technically, we're advising the commission. So that is a conversation to happen there. Yeah, and there is, these people have dollar signs. It's unreal what's coming. And so it is a moment where kind of the sky's the limit, and we're considered a disadvantaged community, I believe. So we're priority funding. And I'm not sure what criteria they used, and I will call the state and just ask out of curiosity, but that this first round of funding, just as background, the state urban forestry just put in a request for 6.6 million for the next 2 to 3 years.
Out of the 1.5 billion.
Yep, and it's only going to disadvantage, which they showed the map, and it's pretty much everybody, but so we'll fall under that, and then it can be used for infrastructure. It can be used as many things. So anyways, it's a good time to be considering all this for sure. Yeah, other ideas, what's been working?
Well, educationally, I think that's, I've been trying to educate myself, just trying to, just all around these native plants, but I think for the community, getting the community involvement, getting the community, excited or interested in their trees, their landscaping, and, how to just improve, everybody's, the town, their gardens, but just get some excitement about that. I think there's a webinar that I watched. It was a gentleman who's in native plant oriented, but he wrote a book called Nature's Best Hope. And the hope is each one of us, and that and just the interaction between, it was talking his garden, he's a professor back east, and but just an exciting guy that just really got me going, thinking about the wildlife, birds, the pollinators. If you get the community to buy in and a tree board, I thought, okay, who doesn't love a tree?
Right.
and then
surprising how
gives
many
you,
people around here don't want trees in their yards, or
but they probably like going to a garden, having I was involved with a native plant garden.
Yeah.
Back in California, and it was a library garden, but it's so, and it's become quite the thing there, and the community that's involved in that garden, people really take pride in it, and I think that's kind of, what I see could happen here, and if people will take pride in the tree that we plant, if they can, then, well, this is my tree, you're going to take care of it, and hopefully you're not going to, let it die, or you're going to be watching it. But I think, so education and how do we bring, I mean, is that not an element that where the tree board could go or a offshoot of?
I mean, do
how we-
people feel that's a good role for a tree board is to be
Or just
the
a
educators for
piece or something, or a resource
Mhm.
for information.
Yeah.
I thought I had my, there's a whole packet, I guess, that Mitch gave me, native plants and trees, but it's a,
Mhm.
I mean, there's a lot of good information
Oh,
there.
yeah. Extension has a lot and maybe Plant
People,
Society has a
You know,
lot.
I'm thinking up where I live, and if people got more involved with their gardens and their, you know, what they plant. And I think there's some of that going on as far as talking about the kind of landscaping that
Mhm.
is gonna happen up there, you know, with the subdivision and all. So, I don't know if that makes any
Mhm.
sense, but.
Yep. So
I'm trying to
community
learn more.
liaison, education. Mhm.
I think, I don't know if it's this group talked about, you know, we've got Woodrose and Murdoch's and Ace and selling trees.
Mhm.
And I bought trees from all of them. I don't know if they give you much information. So we talked about, I don't know
No.
if there's us that talked about here, you know, here's a flyer to hand out.
Mhm.
Because,
Yeah.
and, you know, hopefully it won't scare people off, you know, you have to take care of this thing forever. But I don't know, if
Well, we would
one of our
like you
meetings
to,
at the,
yeah.
the gazebo. I don't know her name. Somebody from the city came out and she said something about just water your tree for 30 seconds. And I was like,
No.
what? She's read that somewhere or saw it on some website. So, you know, to clear up some misinformation. And I know, you know, I don't know, it was a year
Oh,
and a
I
half
know
ago,
where
we,
it comes from. Mhm.
you know, we've talked about the role of tree board and I've been thinking about it. I'm trying to think of something we can do without much of a budget. And that really limits us. But, and then the other thing, I can't remember what plan Marshall put together. Marshall put together something, submitted to the city, and it just sort of sat there. And then I think at that time, he got a little chastised and said, you know, that's not your role. You know, if the tree board wants a study done or wants some information put together, then you go to the commission and the commission appoints the city staff to do that.
Right.
But, because at one point, and we still don't know if or when the Emerald Ash Borer will get here. But, you know, I've talked about it at a couple meetings. It sure would be nice to, instead of when it arrives in a load of firewood,
Yeah.
and it's, instead of having a panic situation, to have and again, I don't know if this is our role or the city wants to take care of it, you know, in terms of directing city staff, but to have just a plan, you just pull out the binder and here's what we do when the ash borer arrives, instead of spending 18 months deciding what to do now that it has arrived, or now that it's in Billings or in Big Timber or working its way here.
So I think that's a way that that's something that's been missing in this, since I've been involved, is if the tree board is an advisory board, and one primary role is to advise the city commission, it would be helpful, I think, for the tree board for the city commission to ask the tree board to task the tree board with specific you know, needs of the city, so the tree board can be advisory. In other words, I'm saying, we're talking about things we can initiate. But it seems to me we're also a responsive organization, since we're advisory, so that would probably be helpful. If we knew what the commission was working on with this board and the other boards, in terms of working to prevent disaster with the ash trees, then we could get right on it, so to speak.
I believe the
like the
Ashford
idea of
plan is
there's a
approved.
handout or
It
some
probably
sort.
needs updating. But they were saying that
To
it's
the
not
garden
here, at
centers.
least it's not known. And it's been on stalls for some years. We don't know what's going on. But that in order to infect a tree, you have to be a proximity of 15 feet from the infected wood. So, that you do have a lot of time once it arrives to put your plan in place. And what I think a number of communities are considering is just find your sort of heritage ash that are worth saving and possibly treat them. But the cost of treating them is vastly higher than the cost of planting new trees that are more diversified. So our efforts have been really, and they actually said, take ash off your tree list 100%. And it was
Mhm.
questionable about maples. Just get rid of them. They're just not gonna do well, so. But yeah, to your point, I think that's right. I mean, it's. The commission has so many things on their mind and, thinking about what they want the tree board to do is certainly pretty far down the list. I'm sure things could come up. But that was the goal of our annual report, what we kind of wanted, but we haven't gone to the commission and said, we would like to do such and such, or we would like somebody to do such and such. And that's something, we just, like you say, there were many issues, but at this point in the future, that might be a good thing for us to really, when we do our work, think about it in that way.
And I don't know, Dan's not here this meeting, but again, this is a couple of years ago, and it was just me, because I talked to other people on the tree board, nobody else was too concerned about it, but they received the grant. Well, we're an advisory board to the commission, but the city staff, the public works department never, I guess it's not their role for us to consult with them or them to consult with us. And so that I was really miffed. That first grant they got a couple of years ago to take down, I don't know if it's hazard trees or ash trees, but it didn't make sense at that time. And because like entire block, it was supposed to take down dead and dying ash trees, and they just went and mowed down
Yeah,
the one side of a block, and then so I went back using Garvey's study to look at the trees they took down, and they weren't recommended to be removed, and I was like, what are they doing? So I got a little miffed at
there's
that.
like some coordination.
Communication.
Yeah, and that doesn't say, there's nothing in here about city staff, that's not our role, but so that's been one of the things, it's like, what is our role?
Yes.
Well, it sounds like it's a time that we kind of get to say what it is. Or
Well, yeah,
We
I don't
put our
think-
requests out there.
request, yeah.
requests. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Wrong word.
And I think, so we had the previous arborist was on the tree board and he was very interactive and it was a real conversation, and then he retired, and so that's partly what happened as well. We haven't talked to an arborist. Well, actually, Dan Bush came a few times and he was terrific, but he hasn't been, that's not been his job to come back. So,
Mhm.
yeah, that is a big gap. In fact, it was a little embarrassing at the tree retreat because we got the certificate for the most active tree board in the state. And I said, oh, how nice. What was that based on? And they said that it was funding and it was the 40 some trees that were taken down. And that was a big accomplishment for a small community, but the money went, I just said, wow, thanks. Yeah, that was really great. They said, did you get your certificate? I said, well, it exists. I don't know. Is it hanging? Do you have it? I have no idea.
It's fun.
Surprise.
It was, they said, was there an award? And I said, I wasn't present at an award. I don't. I wanted that. It was given out last year, I think, for 2021. Yeah. Because all the work was done the previous summer. Everybody knew Livingston. It was actually funny. Nice bunch. I said, oh, thank you. Yes, we're terrific. The best. So, okay.
Question about the creation document of the tree board.
Yeah,
Requires,
it's interesting. 2018.
2018 requires an annual plan.
So we turn in our annual report, and I don't know if that's what that means.
Years, this is the upcoming year. So that's the offer.
we do it for, so it reflected on 2022, we turned it in January.
Yeah, but this looks like it's an anticipatory kind of deal.
Oh,
Like a
mhm.
plan for the next year.
Yep, so that would be, that's what was discussed a lot as a management plan. We put our goals for the next year, but it's not
That's
really a
right.
plan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so maybe that's something we should
Mhm.
think about, doing every year and try to schedule that and, you know, make a plan or subcommittee or something. Task people with writing different parts of it.
Yeah, because it seems like that would be the master plan and then the management plan, but that would be much bigger than the tree board. I feel like that's part of our problem is that people are kind of segmented, fragmented. And, you know, one group, the city's doing one thing, we're doing one thing, and the schools are doing, the library's doing something, and we don't have all the players together. And so that would be something I think would be, especially knowing now that, you know, like Shannon said, we no more planting in places that don't have underground irrigation. Well, that's pretty limiting. And so then do we work on getting irrigation or like, what does that mean? Because that doesn't necessarily put you at your priority spots. It just puts you at where the trees are more likely to survive, which I get. But, you know, is that really where it's most needed? So all those issues, I think, can be addressed, yeah. Yes.
It may be worth looking into what other tree boards do to support their community and the commission to make sure that we're, you know, being as effective as possible. I haven't looked at other tree boards, but I think it'd be worth seeing what they're able to do.
So, yep, that was the
That's a
tree
good
board
idea.
retreat for 2 days. Representatives from all over the place, similar issues. A lot of them are all volunteer. I mean, like the Townsend Board has been pruning all the trees in the community with volunteers for the last 15 years.
Wow.
They have a forester on their,
Townsend.
many of these tree boards have a forester and arborist.
It's
on
closer
the
to
board.
tree boards.
Small.
So they're working boards.
Mm.
Almost nobody had a management plan or a master plan. They're just sort of doing as needed, and they do a planting, whether it's Arbor Day. The Missoula, the bigger towns, it's much more integrated. But I think people are starting to see that having a separate tree board isn't necessarily maybe that it's important that it be somewhere. But that because the goal is to integrate it into all aspects. You know, infrastructures, stormwater, safe routes to school, you know, again, property taxes, you know, if we're gonna be able to move toward community solar, planting in ways that protect the neighborhood but don't interfere with, there's just so many more issues bigger than a tree board necessarily would know. So a more integrated approach, I think, was more popular.
Like a
But-
tree committee as part of a bigger board.
A subcommittee, yep. And then funding was an issue. And then getting their, there was a lot of nonprofits, but they tended to be much closer to they fell under a plan. They didn't go on their own project, so. And there was 100% nothing for free. They die. Do not give stuff for free, period. Yeah, great points. So we might, we'll hear more, I guess, from Grant and from the commission. To your point, they'll ask us when it, you know, we need to be in conversation. We'll take off April and May and then see what the summer brings.
Laurel, can
special
I
meeting for
ask
everybody.
that we have either a special meeting or that we do meet in April for Arbor Day? Because I feel like we need to.
Yeah.
Put this back together.
I think, we could keep our same date and just limit it to Arbor Day, or
Okay.
we could, that's pretty late, that's just a week early.
I don't know if there's enough time.
It's,
Could we do it a week sooner?
I think we should just
Yeah.
make it a special meeting
Yeah.
and, yeah. So if this Thursday works, we have the 13th maybe, and then that gives us, it's 2 weeks before the 2 weeks and a day. If you call Heather and I call Mark and let's just check in. If one of those fails, we'll have to do
We'll
something
have to start
different.
over, yeah.
Okay,
Did you have the 13th?
that's one, that would be the Thursday before our normal meeting. And then we'll just call that a working meeting or what do we call it?
Yes, special.
Just
Special
Yeah.
We'll have to check the calendar. I don't know if you have it in there. Hey, Tori. Okay, same time is great. That work for everybody? Noon?
Yeah.
I'm in the wrong meeting. My
No,
apologies.
that's-
We are just finishing up now.
Okay.
Okay, so April 13th, 12 to 1.
Change
special
stuff
meeting.
one, you're gonna call Heather, I'm gonna call Mark, and let's try to do that this week, and then.
Yep.
If that is a glitch, watch your emails, everybody, and we can
Mhm.
go to Plan B. Thank you. Okay. I'll keep this safe.
Thank you.
Whew. No, that's it. Oh. Why do you want to look?
No, I was sliding.
No.
Yeah.